Mm, mm. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Friday, to the Friday Live. If you would like to help the show, please share, etc. videos from this channel. I want to real quick just let everybody know we are going to be doing a free webinar that I will be linking very soon in the community part of this page or of this YouTube channel. It's a free webinar on breathwork. Not only is it something that is great for people who already are into breathwork, but it's something especially good. We're doing 2 different days. The first day is especially good for people maybe that don't understand this whole breathwork thing. And that's going to be coming up next week. It's a great thing to share to other people. And then, of course, day number 2 is going to be more for maybe this particular audience. Maybe if you already have some skills in breathwork or if you've already been doing it for a while, it's great for that. Let's see here. Let me check my levels. Check. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I'm nice and loud. Hey, everybody. Hey, and Job Desveld. Hey, CST or CES. Hello, Europe. Hello, everybody around the world. So, hey, it's Friday, so I'm having a good day. It's overall just going to be, it should be an awesome weekend. We finally got some nice weather here in the Midwest. Actually, I can't complain too much. It's been kind of rainy. I like to get out in the sunshine, but hey, today we're going to be talking a little bit about quite a few different things, but one of the things is why you don't get the results that you think you should get with your breathwork practice. And then we're also going to be talking about upcoming events and other things like that. Like I said, I'm doing a free webinar next week. It's on Tuesday and Wednesday, and it's not only just for people who have never heard of breathwork, but hey, here's the thing. If you're like a lot of people who contact me, I get a lot of people that contact me and say, Jesse, I'm frustrated. I know my mom or my brother or my friend needs to get into breath work or Wim Hof method, but specifically in this case, breath work. And I'm having troubles, convincing her or him or whoever to get into it. And so I feel your pain. My friends. And this is something that I have experienced a lot in my life. And it's something, especially early on, whenever I was getting into breath work, I was like, wow, why isn't everybody getting into this? This is just such an obvious thing that everyone should get into. And then a lot of times people have troubles getting into it. So, or they think, okay, yeah, I'll take a deep breath. That's great, Jesse. And then they just kind of go on their way. Hey, M. Peter, nice to see you here. Let's see. Been some time since I caught your last live. You know what, though, M. Peter? I got to say, it's been a while since I've been consistent on these lives. So what happens is I've been pretty much all of May, I was traveling. So I was going all over the place, teaching breath work, teaching Wim Hof method, doing retreats and things like that. And it seemed like every Friday at this time, which is my usual time, I was traveling. So, hey, it might have been that it might have been meant to be that you were busy. I was busy. We were all busy. So, yeah, so I didn't get a chance to do a lot of lives this week, though. All right. Hey, Alvaro, thank you for being here. And are you part of my Patreon club? I think I just got a notification with your name on it today. If not, you should join my Patreon club. But but hey, either way, glad you're here. Good to see everybody here today. And yeah, so Peter, you're trying to convince your mom to take cold showers because she's got allergies and asthma. Yeah, here's the thing. So let's talk a little bit about this. First of all, why you're not getting the results you think you should get. And here's the thing. A lot of times a person will just go through the motions and not even really know, am I getting the results that I think I'm getting or that I am trying to get? And because a lot of times people will not even understand how to even check or how to even, it's like, well, I feel like maybe things are going better. I remember, have you guys, first of all, I want to ask a question to this audience because I like asking questions, and I'm always interested in this tribe. And hey, Andy, thank you. Good to have you here, my friend. Brandon, welcome here. All right. So anyway, I want to ask this question to you guys. Do you guys take a lot of supplements? I take quite a few supplements on a regular basis, like vitamins, minerals, herbs, and things like that. So I was wondering if you guys do. So if you do, let me know. But yeah, a lot of times a person will take a supplement or something like that, and there really is no way to. It's not like it's something that's going to make you feel different. Like for instance, if you take a caffeine pill, yes, you will feel differently than before you took it. But there's a lot of them that you just don't really even know. And you just kind of assume, well, I assume it's working. I assume it's doing something for me. Well, a lot of times I think people approach breath work the same way because there's a lot of people that, I practice breath work, but I still don't sleep well. I still have terrible digestion. I still have all these problems. And it's not to say that breath work is going to solve every single problem in your life. That's not what I'm trying to say, but it's like, well, it's obvious that you're still having a lot of these same problems that we generally want to practice breath work for. So there's definitely a need to be able to say, okay, are these things really working for me? Are they or why is it that they're not necessarily doing the things that I think they should be doing? Because I followed along to my app, and if you guys just saw my video earlier today, if you haven't seen it, watch it, share it, like it, make a comment, please. Tickle that algorithm for me, please. But like, if you've not seen it, but I'm going to spoil it. But the truth is, so a lot of people ask me what their favorite, they'll say, Jesse, what is a good app for breath work? And the answer is there is really no good app, because ultimately, and I'm not saying guided breath work is bad. Obviously, I think it's a great thing. I produce, if you're in my Patreon club, I do produce an enormous amount of guided breathwork sessions, and I obviously think that they're good. But ultimately, that is one of the many ingredients in a successful breathwork practice. And so it's something that I see a lot of times a lot of people just wanting to get into techniques, and they're not getting into really their own selves, their own physiology. Whenever there's a Sharpie, I've been doing studying. I've been doing studying. And it is you. Hey, Alvaro. Yeah, awesome. Let's see. I got out and in again at the same time because I had problems with PayPal. Yeah, but I mean, okay, cool. Yeah, well, and then let's see. Our next, if you're in the Patreon Breath Club, first of all, if you're not in the Patreon Breath Club, you need to get with it. Well, we would love to have you. I should say it that way. The Patreon Breath Club, we're doing our next live Zoom session on Monday the 14th. So if you're not in the Patreon Breath Club, let me just give you an idea of what that is all about, and then we'll just talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. If you have any questions, throw them in there. I'm having fun. It's Friday, and really, I don't have a lot of plans. And that's kind of nice. It's kind of nice finally, because I was on the road so much every weekend on the road. And then not just on the weekends. I was on the road like during the week, and it's nice to be back with my family. It's nice to be back with just not having to be in a hotel. If the first few times you go to a hotel, it's kind of cool. But like eventually you just want to be home. But if you're not in the Patreon club, just so you know, what happens in the Patreon Breath Club is that every month I produce what I believe, at least, are really well polished guided breathwork sessions. And generally I produce 2 of them. For a long time I was doing 3, but what we've done this year, so the very first year is the very first year I just produced about 3 or 4 a month. And then there's some instructional so there's some instructional things in there. It's not really heavy on instructional stuff. That's stuff that I offer like in my 6-week breath mastery course, and other things like that in my book and whatnot. But what we focus on in the breath mastery, or in the breath club, in the Patreon breath club, is just basically having fun with breath. And then what I try to do is I give you breathing protocols. Some of them are really long. Some of them are like 30 to 45 minutes if you want to go super deep and have a very deep, experience to kind of break through the anxiety, break through the dopamine feedback loop, and no, you're not just breathing heavy all the time. There are definitely plenty of superventilation techniques that I include, but there's a lot of other things that are in there too, like guided meditations. And guys, for those of you who are in the Patreon club, what is your favorite session? Because I tell you what, each month I'm like, okay, because after you produce a bunch of these, I've been doing this for almost 2 years now. After you do this for a while, you're like, okay, so what have I not done, and how am I going to create some kind of a breathwork experience that will help people in this group? So we have some of them that are just like 5 or 10 minutes long. And they, for instance, like a lot of people still go on smoke breaks, and so what do you do if you're a breath worker? Maybe you don't smoke. It's like, okay, well, I've got 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to go into, I'm going to, pop on my phone, get my earbuds, and then do a breath break. So we've got things that will reset your autonomic nervous system or reset your ability to focus. And it's all based in science. It's based on techniques that I've been studying for years. I've trained under masters, and I've done an enormous amount of research in writing my book, A Practical Guide to Breathwork. So it's all very practical, very accessible. There are some sessions that require you to understand how to do a certain technique, like for instance, Kapalabhati, or I don't think I have any Bhastrika in any of the sessions. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But I do have so Kapalabhati, I teach you how to do it. I teach you how to do Kapalabhati, reverse straw, which is one that's in my book, the reverse straw technique. So there are some techniques that are for improving your breathing mechanism, some techniques that are for improving your CO2 tolerance. So if you don't know about CO2 tolerance, you want CO2 tolerance. So there's a little bit of something for everybody, and a little bit of something for different goals in different parts of your day. And it's super cheap to join. I want to make it, that is one of those things that I want to make very accessible. And if you want to dig deeper, of course, you can do the 6-week course. Also, now that I'm on this Patreon kick, I'm gonna. But there's more. You guys remember what is it? Those late night commercials that lasted, what are they called? Infomercials. Yeah. But wait, there's more. Here's my infomercial, I guess, for the day. But if you join the Patreon club, you get a huge discount on pretty much everything that I do. And guys, I have been meaning to do those shirts. So I've been working on some merch, and I've got to get that done, because I think I mentioned the merch back in March. And so we're going to have a merch release, and it's going to be really small, really, limited, and it's not going to be something. I'm not opening a clothing line, but yeah, that's coming out too. And if you're in the Patreon club, you get first dibs on that. So if you're looking for a really cool tribe too, a really cool community of people, we get together every month for at least one group guided session. And then I don't know if I forget Jonathan, I think it's JCC Piano. I don't know if you're on here today, but he is going to be doing live music this time. So I've got this. So there's one of the tribe members is this amazing piano teacher and just amazing musician. And so we're going to collaborate this week or this month on our guided breathwork session. So check it out. I like that, Andy. It's like a breath menu. That's a good point. Because you got to remember, and this is something that, in the breathwork world, and I mentioned this in my video today, but just to expound on that, in the breathwork world, one of the things that I see a lot of is a lot of times people just want to get high. And like I said in the video, I'm I guess I nobody more than me appreciates the ability to feel good through breath work, and getting high on your own supply is something that I'm really, really um I like, right? I wouldn't want to say anything necessarily bad about that. But so many people just think that that's all breath work is. Oh, breath work. Yeah, I can hyperventilate, and that's all it is. And the reality is that there's so much more like that. If you look at the super ventilation, so anything where you're going, you're really over breathing. If you look at that in the scheme of what breath work is, that is such just a small sliver. It's a wonderful sliver. It's a wonderful sliver, but that is just one small sliver. And then even within that, there's a lot of variation. There's a lot of depth that you can get into just within superventilation. It's not all just over breathing. Okay. So we cover a lot of that in the 6-week breath mastery course. So let's take a quick look at some of these comments over here. So Andy, you take vitamins D. Vitamin D, I take that myself. And now that it's summertime and I'm going to be outside more and the thing is, even being a modern human, it makes it difficult to get enough sunshine. And so I definitely would say most people should test their vitamin D to see how much they have in their system. I supplement with a lot of vitamin D, and I feel a lot better whenever I have plenty of vitamin D in my system. So you take D, C, B, magnesium, and fish oil. Yeah, I take a ton of fish oil. Actually, I don't mean to. Oh, look at this. I take the Keon fish oil, and I've been taking that now for about 6 months. Of course, I've taken fish oil since I've taken fish oil for about 20 years. so I, of different brands and styles and things like that. So I can't really say one brand or another. Fish oil just in general is just a fantastic supplement. So do you feel those? Do you feel a difference when you don't take them? That's a question for pretty much anybody here. When you take supplements, do you feel a difference, or is it something that you take based off of, I know this is something that scientifically has been shown to help with humans. I'm interested in that. Papa Geek, dude. Papa Geek. And the cool thing is, Papa Geek, I will not be talking conversions of Fahrenheit and Celsius today, so I know that I'm not going to mess that up. Papa Geek says, this is the only Patreon membership I've kept more than 1 month. Jesse is totally worth it. Well, thank you, my friend. And that's the thing we really try in the Patreon club. The thing is, ultimately, the breathwork movement is just starting to take speed. There's some people that remember whenever, certain sports or certain types of things were starting to take off. And we're going to look back at this time and we're going to say, wow, I remember when and within my lifetime, I can say I remember when nobody was doing breath work. And now I know that there is a growing group. It's not a lot, right? We're still underground, I guess, but it's a growing group of people. And then here's the thing, more and more people are reaching out to me. Like there's magazines like psychology magazines. I spoke at a convention for career development recently. More and more groups outside of like the typical what you might expect, like self-development type of groups, more and more groups are getting into breath work, which is really cool to see. And so I'm really excited to see where this is going. So awesome. Let's see. See Brandon Jackson, the last Wim Hof session and the 45-minute Midwestern method style. Awesome. Job says, I'm a big fan of the 45-minute Midwestern method style breathwork session. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you like that. And this is the thing, not everybody has 45 minutes to dedicate to breathwork. That's a significant amount of time. And if you're busy, it's okay. There's a lot of sessions that are not quite as long. And there's a lot of sessions, like for instance, you don't have to sit there for a long period of time to be able to break through like the dopamine feedback loop or the anxiety feedback loop that we oftentimes get into. There are shorter sessions there, like 10, 5 minutes. Like there's like a 7-minute one, I think. Sometimes like 15 minutes. Ultimately, it's about applying the right technique, hopefully to your right physiology. Okay. So the things I have in the Patreon club are the techniques and the protocols. I don't and I teach a little bit of the techniques in the Patreon club. And then of course, if you're in the Patreon club, you get super discounts on joining like the breath mastery course, which is where I teach like literally how to listen to your physiology without having to, poke yourself with needles and stuff like that. So let's see here. Yes. M. Peter says, I got to say, thanks to your breath mastery course, I got back into hyperventilation after I paused because it didn't do it for me anymore. Oh my God. Okay. Let's just talk about that for a minute. All right. Thank you for bringing that up. So now you say hyperventilation. We in the breathwork world, we say superventilation. So let me just go over kind of what is the difference? What is the difference between hyperventilation and superventilation? Okay, because if you read my book or if you take my courses or anything like that, you're going to hear me say superventilation. Also, if you're in the Patreon club, there are sections like, for instance, as you do the breath, just if you're not part of the breath work, if you're not part of my Patreon breath club, as you do the breath, on the screen, it tells you what to do as well. It says, okay, we're doing this style or this technique, right? I guide you through, but it also tells you what the technique is that you're doing. And a lot of times it'll be superventilation. So superventilation, let's just, you know what? It's Friday. Let's do a little superventilation. Here we go. I'm going to superventilate. Well, let's do it together. Not if you're driving. So if you want to superventilate, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You're going to notice that as I guide you through superventilation, especially if you've done any of the Pulmonaut Collective guided breathwork sessions, I normally there's freestyle superventilation. Like for instance, a Wim Hof method breathwork technique is more of a freestyle superventilation. You find your flow and it's going to be different every time. There's also other kinds of superventilation, like for instance, the ones that I prefer. But then again, just because I prefer it doesn't mean it's best for everybody. But there are reasons why when I guide you through a superventilation technique, I will typically give you a cadence to repeat over and over again. I'll tell you those reasons in the 6-week breath mastery class, but there are good reasons. And essentially what we do when we're superventilating, the thing that's different from hyperventilating, the only difference is that you have control when you superventilate. That's the big one, right? Paul, we're happy you're here. There's no being late at this party. We're just hanging out. So I'm so happy Friday. But anyway, so ultimately when you're superventilating, like you're doing it on purpose, you have conscious control, and that itself, okay? So think about this. And come to the webinar, come to my 6-week breath mastery course for more in-depth information. But think about this. Hyperventilation is uncontrolled. Who is controlling hyperventilation? You. Okay, now hang with me for a minute. Okay, so you're saying, wait a minute, Jesse, you said that hyperventilation is uncontrolled. Who is controlling hyperventilation? It's me. Yeah. What? What? Yes. I know this might sound weird, but the reality is that you are causing, like, you got to understand, it's the Illuminati. Thank you, Papa Geek. Yes. Now they're listening. Anyway, so what happens is when you are hyperventilating, you're not consciously controlling it. Your autonomic nervous system is controlling it. Your physiology is taking over, and you're not consciously controlling it. So conscious control is the key, right? That's the key difference between superventilation and hyperventilation. Hyperventilation is you're just letting your autonomic nervous system take over. You are just basically saying, okay, and you're not consciously saying this, right? And in fact, it's interesting. So let's dig into the history behind this. So what we see in society is that hyperventilation is very common. So, and this is something that we've seen a lot of this, what we call hyperventilation syndrome or breath pattern disorders. We've seen this for, especially here in the United States. Now, I assume it's the same in every other industrialized country because we started to see it in the United States. And this is, okay, so we had a civil war in the United States in the 1860s. And as is the case with any time whenever there's a war, it's the first time whenever a lot of people have access to medical care. Okay, so that's it. I know that sounds interesting, but it is oftentimes. Hey, good to see you, Moose Mans. Smile to you, my friend, and thank you, guys. And this is Friday. This is Friday. There's all sorts of reasons to smile. Yes, there's that one thing that's bugging you. But hey, guess what? There's all these people over here who are sending you smiles, and I'm sending you a smile. So smile. All right. So here's the thing. So, and don't feel bad, M. Peter. Everybody confuses that. So that's half the fun. It's okay to call it. Yeah, it's called hyperventilation in your mother tongue too. Well, okay. Anyway, but the point is, we start seeing this thing called hyperventilation syndrome, and it's been called a lot of things. But in the United States, there was a doctor who noticed. I think I think if I remember correctly, there's like 300 guys who were at the front lines, and they were all suffering from this weird syndrome that they had never seen before. And it involved like elevated heart rate, headache, fuzzy, like they couldn't think straight. They're agitated and just overall just feeling bad. And they were hyperventilating. Now, the thing is, they took these soldiers and they took them away from the front lines. And yes, they did. Their symptoms did reduce, but they didn't go away very fast. They actually stayed in the state, even though intellectually they knew, hey, we're not on the front lines anymore. Okay. And they used to call it, I think it was called soldier's heart even. And so this is something that strangely enough has been documented with a lot of different wars. And then later on, people are like, wait a minute, we're starting to see this in just regular society. And I think they called it the designer jean syndrome. Like you're wearing designer jeans in the 1970s here in the United States. Like they've called it a lot of things, but ultimately what we call it today is hyperventilation syndrome. And it's basically where you're hyperventilating and you don't realize it. And all of the, and I guess I skipped over, I think it was in the 1930s, there were doctors that were studying this issue, and they realized that it wasn't, that they realized that because okay, let me start over. What happened was early on, they thought that the heart beating fast was causing the hyperventilation, and then the hyperventilation was just a symptom. What they later found out is that the hyperventilation not only was a symptom, but it was a cause of all of these symptoms. What? So think about this. So you're a doctor and you're seeing your patient, and think about this right now, right? How often do you go to the doctor and they observe your breathing? I have not gone to the doctor where yes, they listen to see if there's obstructions in your lungs, and they listen to see, okay, do you have bronchitis? That's all wonderful, but they don't really pay attention to your breath pattern, right? They don't do that. And the interesting thing is there's actually a causal relationship between hyperventilation and an enormous amount of modern day symptoms. And so what these doctors found, not only on the battlefield, like and during these times of war, but also later on in regular society, is that the hyperventilation was both the result and the cause of these disorders. And so it's like, wait a minute, how can it be both? How can it be the result and the cause of the heart palpitations, feeling just high levels of anxiety, just all of these symptoms like terrible digestion. In fact, there's a lot of what they call pseudo versions of actual problems. Like for instance, there's a condition called pseudo asthma, and what that is it's asthma that is not actually pathological. Like for instance, it's asthma that's caused by something, and then it's caused by something functional. And in this case, we've seen an enormous amount of correlations between breathing patterns, right? Actual learning to how you have breathing dysfunctions and breathing patterns. We see how there's a correlation and a causal relationship now between these dysfunctional breathing patterns and this condition called pseudo asthma. Now, that one you might be like, okay, my friend has asthma. I'll tell him about that. Awesome. How about irritable bowel syndrome? That one is quickly becoming very, very common in the Western world. And it has been traced back to, not in every case, okay, but in many cases, it can be traced back to a breathing dysfunction, and oftentimes that's hyperventilation syndrome. So what that is you're breathing too fast and you don't notice. And a lot of times, like even me telling you this right now, you're like, I don't think I'm breathing too fast. And it's very difficult sometimes to determine, okay, is this person hyperventilating, until you take a really close look at them, or until we kind of dig deep and say, all right, okay, so let's see how we can change your breathing pattern. And so basically, we started finding this out in the mid 1800s, that there is possibly this relationship between breathing and then heart palpitations and digestion problems and all these things. And so over time, we've kind of monitored this, and scientists and doctors have really worked on figuring this out. And now we're sure of it. We know that there are an enormous amount of issues that are related to a poor breathing habit or dysfunction. And here's the thing about your breath. It is something that you have conscious control over. It's also something that is automatic. So what that means is that it's a lot like your posture. Okay. Think about that. It's a lot like your posture. You can, okay, I'm going to put my shoulders back, really just have perfect posture, but it is your daily habits. It is the way that it's not just every morning I do my posture exercises, therefore I have no posture problems. Okay. Yes, if you do posture exercises every morning, good for you. Keep doing them. Don't stop. But it's not necessarily a ticket to, well, I guess I don't have to worry about posture issues. It's the same thing with breath work. It's the same with your breathing. Your body, physically, the body is very good at figuring out how to get the job done. So what that means is it'll get the job done, and it's not necessarily going to get it done with perfect form. It just gets it done. And it's generally looking for the easiest or the least amount of resistance in order to do that, which is why we have an enormous amount of postural issues, which is why we have an enormous amount of issues with muscle imbalances, especially, who has an enormous amount of muscle imbalances? Elite athletes. People who use their bodies for a living oftentimes have incredible muscle imbalances. And it's like, how did you get this dysfunctional? And it was because they were repeating the same movements over and over again. So basically that is what we see a lot. And so what we're trying to do in the breathwork world, of course, is to raise some awareness around this And then ultimately to try to provide some outlets to really learn, okay, let's learn how to use this aspect of our physiology. And it's one of those things where you can learn some techniques and tips and things like that, which is awesome. But ultimately, you have to eventually say, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to dig deep and really dive deep into this. So how you choose to do that is of course up to you. But of course, this is one of those things where that's why I started the 6-week course, is because I didn't see anybody else out there doing it live. So my 6-week course is live, which means it's a lot like this, only we meet for 2 hours every week for 6 weeks. And we cover things in great depth and detail. You can ask me questions as we go. And so it's a really cool thing. So and a lot of you guys have taken it, so I really appreciate your reviews, and I'll be posting some of the actually we got a lot of testimonials, so I always like to get those. So thank you for those. But overall, hey, hey, the Dante THB, cheers from Germany, mein Freund. That was a terrible rendition of my German, but hey, you're my kinfolk. I'm mostly German and French, like I've got mostly German and French. My grandmother's side were Oxman, and they came directly over from Germany. My grandmother could speak German, and she wasn't incredibly fluent, because her parents used German as a language that maybe we can just have a language just for the grown-ups, and then we'll teach the kids English. And so it was a kind of a method of child rearing, but she still taught me some German when I was in high school, and I was taking German. So nice to have you, my friend. So let's see. So Job, hyperventilating for me is always connected to panic attacks when your sympathetic nervous system calls the shots. Yes. So here's what happens. Okay. And this is where it's worth it to dig deep now, because here's what happens. A lot of times we want to piece things together for free, or we try to piece things together in books and things like that, which is fine, which is great. But sometimes it's good to just go and take a deep dive and actually, let's really learn this in the course. But yeah, what happens is you will have some kind of a stressor, in your life. You've got a deadline, or you've got somebody's being a jerk or whatever. And then that stresses you out, which causes you to become somewhat sympathetic, right? You're going into that fight or flight dominant state, which naturally sends signals to create heavier breathing, which naturally sends signals back to the autonomic nervous system that, hey, we really are in trouble. We really are, running from the bear or whatever. And it creates a feedback loop. And so there are techniques that you can use. And not everybody's going to have the same reaction to every technique. Some people, hey, box breathing, boom. And that one is probably the most common. And I would say the reason why it's most common is because it works for most people. So you try to balance the autonomic nervous system. And so this is where a lot of people, will have issues on how breathing works, where it's like, well, I know this one technique is supposed to make me calm, so I'll apply that technique. Well, you might be applying it at the right time. You may be applying it at the wrong time. You might be applying it, and it's not even something that really works for your specific physiology. So it really pays to really, to invest in learning how your physiology works. And of course, yes, I'm plugging my 16-week, it's not 16 weeks. Man, 16 weeks would be a long time for a course. It's a 6-week course. Hey, Belgium. Now, see, there is where, David, So Belgium, my great grandfather was from Belgium. So nice to have you here, David. Let's see, Sandre, how do you define hyperventilation? More than X amount of breaths per minute? Well, X amount of breaths per minute is one way to define hyperventilation. And that's the primary way of defining it. But ultimately, you need to understand where the dysfunction is occurring so that you can actually fix that issue and then continue to monitor and correct it. So it takes understanding why the dysfunction is happening, and then understanding, okay, these are the steps that we're going to take to make sure that we're reducing those breaths per minute. Because I mean, simply put, hyperventilation, you're typically you're breathing more times per minute than you should, and so that's the primary way we look at that. Stephen Miller, how's it going, Stephen? Hey, Jesse, thoughts on combining 16 hours of fasting and cold exposure? Yay or nay? Also, is caffeine best avoided with Wim Hof method? Many thanks. Well, hey, brother, that's a great question. So when it comes to fasting and cold exposure, really, it's and I remember how much I used to hate when people said, it's all dependent on your own physiology. And it's because I wanted to get the answer, right? Just tell me, is it good for me or is it not? And the reality is, after all this study and after all this research, I found that we're all so different. We all have so much different. Like, even though we're all mostly the same, our physiology, our biology is different within our species. And it's very difficult to say one way or the other. But Stephen, let me talk to you about my personal experience with doing this. I used to do this all the time. Right now, I'm not fasting. Right now, I am in the process of I'm trying to put on some muscle. So I'm not fasting right now. But 16-hour fasts plus ice bathing was a daily thing for me. So hey, enjoy. I am all about that. And here's the advice I'm going to give you. Just understand that the first time you start to do this, you need to be nice to yourself. That's always that's one of the refrains that you're also going to hear from me. The more you hear me talk, is that you like you, right? And here's the thing you need to understand, that your brain likes you too. Okay. And your brain will step in front of you if it feels like you're being a jerk to you. I would love to see this written out. Your brain likes you. Your brain will step in front of you if it feels like you're being a jerk to you. The reality, you get where I'm coming from. I think you understand what I'm saying. But but what happens is, if you go too hard too fast, and I don't care what it is that you're doing, but if you go too hard too fast, what's going to happen is that you may create a mental block. And that could be, and essentially what it is, your brain is trying to protect you from something. And in this case, it might be the cold, it might be from whatever. So here's what I suggest that you do. On your first 2 or 3 days of fasting, there's 16 plus hours, I would recommend starting. So do your cold exposure when you are not necessarily the least fasted, but let's suppose you have a really common window is 6. You'll end your eating with dinner, right? So a lot of times a person will end with 6 p.m. and they won't eat again until 10 a.m. the next day, or maybe noon the next day. Okay. And then that'll be their eating window. I would recommend trying to do your cold exposures during your eating window when you're starting off with this. Okay. Or you can do your cold exposure another way to do it. And this is how I always did it. Okay. So this is just how I did it. Doesn't mean it's good for everybody. But what I did is 6 p.m., I would be done with my eating, either 6 or 7, right? I would wait an hour after that. So an hour into my fasting window, and then I would take my ice bath. And then later on, you can experiment with cold exposures whenever you're very fasted. It's just that in my experience and in most people's experience, it feels the cold feels colder. Everything feels harder to do, and you're more likely to give yourself the excuse of, you know what, I don't need to do this cold exposure today. I'm fasting. I'm kind of tired and I'm kind of cold anyway, because that's another thing that comes with intermittent fasting or fasting just in general, is that when you're fasted, you can get kind of chilly just naturally. And that has to do with, I forget exactly the hormone. I forget what it is, but essentially what happens is, it has to do with the fact that when you're fasting, you don't necessarily, your body temperature doesn't necessarily fluctuate. It's just that you feel colder. And so, yeah, yeah, Jamie knows. Jamie knows. The cold feels colder, right? And so, my advice is, if you're going to get into cold training while doing intermittent fasting or fasting in general, awesome. By the way, that is a wonderful idea, because you're inducing two different stressors, and you're helping this hormetic process. You're stressing it even more, and so that is good. Okay. But my advice to anybody doing this is always try to get into the cold before you feel that that really hungry feeling, or that really almost the weak feeling that comes with fasting, just because you're more likely to get out of that cold water feeling strong and I'm going to rock this day. You're going to have a much better day. You won't feel weak. You'll feel awesome. You'll even look forward to the cold exposure a little bit more, because you won't be dreading it. You won't be saying, man, oh, I really wish I could get a sandwich. But now all I have is this ice bath. Those are awful last words too. Wouldn't those be like you put those on your gravestone? I wish I could have a sandwich, but all I have is this ice bath. And then that was, rest in peace. So, so I hope that helps, Stephen. And kudos, man. Definitely do both of those at the same time. Just remember that you're doing this for your health. You're not doing it to prove anything. You're not doing it to punish yourself. You're doing it to help yourself. So that's ultimately the big goal there. Let's see. Hey, Sandre D, are you in my Patreon club? If you are, let me know. And hit me up in Patreon sometime. I would love to chat it up with you on that. Yes, awesome. Well, hey, brother, definitely, or my friend just in general, definitely use that the coupon code to get that the discount on the Breath Mastery class. I think you will like it a lot. So if you can, and just remember that the Breath Mastery class, all the videos, like the live stuff, is recorded. So if you can't make it to the live sessions, you'll have access to the videos forever. Just a thought. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll like the fine tuning we do. So let's see here. Mark Perry's 99. Jesse, have you noticed in your experience that there is a difference in retention times that are age dependent? Ooh. That is, lower retention times as one gets older. Thanks. So, okay. So anytime someone refers to a neutral lung apnea as a retention time, I know we're talking about Wim Hof method. And so Wim Hof method, I kind of assume everybody knows about Wim Hof method, but I'll just kind of give it. So in Wim Hof method, and of course, you can go to wimhofmethod.com to find all the details, including my upcoming workshops, which I have 2 workshops I have yet to put on wimhofmethod.com. I need to do that. And I'll get to your question here in just a second, but hey, I can't help myself. In case anybody goes to my wimhofmethod.com page, like, I need to update this thing. I think literally it was 2016 whenever I last updated my Wim Hof method page. I think maybe I might have changed the location, because actually there, in my first year of being a Wim Hof method instructor, I had a specific studio that I called my home base, which was really nice. It was my sister's yoga studio. They no longer have the yoga studio, and I no longer can do workshops there, but it was really nice. So I actually put the actual full address of that place there, and I think that's the only thing that's the only thing that I've changed. But anyway, when it comes to age-related retention times, here's the thing, and when it comes to your ability to hold your breath, there are a lot of variables involved, and it's not necessarily going to be age. But there can be other variables that are involved that are there because of things that have happened to you in your many years. Okay, so I mean, in a way, like for instance, I tore my meniscuses. I've got two torn meniscuses, and you'll never know it walking up a mountain with me that I've got two torn meniscuses. I haven't gotten any surgery on them or anything, but I have two torn meniscuses that I accumulated over time, and as a result, I have those, right? And you might call them age related, but really they're not. It's just that the fact that I've been alive long enough to acquire such a wonderful number of injuries. And so here's the thing. So what we find is sometimes people, as we get older, we accumulate more dysfunctions. We also can have issues that have arisen that are like external, like stressors and things like that. And in addition to that, it also depends on what you've been doing with all the time you've had on this earth. I can't say for a fact that it would be, Moose Man says also maybe like decades of poor, shallow, everyday breathing. Yes. Moose Man knows what he's talking about there. Yes, for sure. But I can't say for a fact that it's going to be age related. And the reason for that is because anecdotally, I can tell you that I have hung out with people that are in their 60s who have incredible breath holds. It has a lot to do with how you breathe throughout the rest of your day. Really, that's the number one thing. And hey, there you go. So now here's the thing. The cool thing is, Mark Puri 99, you said you've been a mouth breather for years, just turned out, okay. So the cool thing is, just because you've developed, so there's different things in the human body. One is disease, right? Disease. The other is dysfunction. Disease is something that, like, there's a pathological reason for it, like you caught it, or it's something genetic, right? Dysfunction is something that is because of habits, right? It's because of lifestyle. It's because of, certain injuries healed this way or that way. And so we see more dysfunctions oftentimes, not necessarily, but oftentimes the older we get, just because we've had more time to slouch. We've had more time to sit in chairs. We've had more time to, eat processed foods and all these things, right? And so I'm not saying that that's what you've done, but what I am saying is that you've had more time to accumulate dysfunction. The good news is that we can undo the vast majority of dysfunction, because a dysfunction, and the beauty behind the human body is that it has the ability to repair itself. And when you give it the right stimuli, you can undo a lot of this dysfunction. So I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, you're destined to have lower breath hold times for the rest of your life, because it's kind of complicated. There's a lot of things that go into breath hold times. For one thing is your diet. Okay. What it is that you eat right now, what you ate for dinner last night influences how long you can hold your breath. And I know that sounds like, well, how is that possible? Well, it does. It influences the gas exchange. It influences how much uh, carbon dioxide your mitochondria produce. So so ultimately, and we go deeper in the 6-week course, but ultimately, my answer to that is it's not just a thing you can say, getting older, getting old. No, don't give yourself that out. Just say, okay, I've probably accumulated some dysfunctions. And what I'm going to do is take the steps to undo those dysfunctions. My best advice to anybody who is looking to improve their breath hold times, specifically with Wim Hof method in this case, or just in general, is to think about how they're breathing the rest of the day and not just during whenever you're doing these techniques, right? Because the rest of the day breathing counts just as much as whenever you're sitting there doing your techniques. So thank you for that question. That's a really good question. I appreciate that. I've never had the age related question there. I've had a lot of times people say, hey, my breath holds are nowhere close to what they used to be. Specifically, they'll say retentions, right? Because they're talking about Wim Hof method, are nowhere close to what they used to be, right? And so I've been a Wim Hof method instructor since I was in the first class, right? Trained directly under Wim. And I've trained thousands of people in that technique. And what I constantly see is when this sort of thing happens, and it happens a lot, people reach out to me all the time about this. It has more to do with all the other aspects. Again, like I was saying earlier, superventilation techniques is this much of breathing, as this much of breath work, right? There's a lot in here, and it's a wonderful this much, right? I love that part of breath work. It's my favorite part. But there's so much more to breath work, and there's so much more to your pulmonary and your overall, your full, when it comes to respiration, there's so much more to it that we don't want to forget that. We don't want to forget that every breath you take counts. This breath that you're breathing right now is influencing an enormous amount of your physiology as we're speaking. And it also influences how long you can hold your breath later. So anyway, let's take a look here. So thank you so much for that question. I'm glad it kind of gave me a chance to riff a little bit. That was really good. So Jamie says, I normally fast in the mornings, but was on holiday this week. So I had a huge breakfast, then did my breath holds. They were half what they normally are. Yeah. That tracks. And it depends on even what you ate, but more than anything, just that you ate. And Tenmei, hey, I'm sorry to hear that. Condolences to you, Tanmay. How to cope with grief. So, and that's a tough one here. So everybody, we're with you, Tanmay. Let's talk about that. So let's talk about how to cope with grief. This is something, especially in the world we live in today, and especially in the space that I'm in. I think so often we assume that sadness is just almost a dysfunction in itself, that we should never have any kind of we should be happy all the time, and you've got a real reason to grieve. Okay. And so as a person, I've had some loss, and I can tell you that I've had some loss in times after becoming whatever it is I am. after and as a person who, like a lot of my clients, are dealing with grief or dealing with anxiety, depression, a lot. I've had psychologists refer people to me. And so this is not something that I'm unfamiliar with. This is something that I deal with all the time. And then I'll experience, some incredible grief. And this is the advice that I want to give you, Tanmay, and I appreciate you sharing this with us, that ultimately the best thing you can do is grieve, is to cry your eyes out, is to acknowledge the emotion and acknowledge the loss. That's a huge loss, your father. And you have our condolences as fellow human beings here on this planet, all of whom either have lost, a loved one or will. And it's one of these aspects of this human experience, this thing that we call being a human being, and this thing that we call life, is that we're going to have these situations, these things come up. And a lot of us want to, try to glaze over it and make it into something that it is, and there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we're going to celebrate the life that we've lost, and that's wonderful. But I think so often we don't want to say, hey, guess what? I am wrecked. I am completely wrecked. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to cry, and I'm going to think about all those wonderful times I've had with my father and honor those and honor this feeling and allow myself to process this emotion. And the worst thing I can say to do, so the worst thing to do would be to not do that. The worst thing, and this is something we oftentimes do, we will say, okay, I don't want to think about it. I'm going to try to do other things. I'm going to get busy. I'm going to, work on some other things. I'm not going to face this emotional state. And those emotions didn't go anywhere when you do that. They don't go anywhere. They stay there. In fact, there's a part of your brain that's called the limbic system, and it's trying to process those emotions right now. And it will continue to try to process those emotions until they're processed. So let them process. Now, what I will say, okay, is that you have a real reason to be sad. And that the best thing I can tell you to do is acknowledge that. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have little breaks, little times when the sadness subsides, and be thankful for those. Don't feel guilty when you're not sad anymore, because this is another pitfall that we oftentimes fall into. Well, why am I not still wrecked? Why am I not still dying of emotions? Why am I not still crying my eyes out? Didn't I love my father? And the answer is no. You've allowed yourself to process those emotions. And the thing is, the pain never really goes away. But what it happens is you develop the strength to live with it. And by doing that, you're able to move forward, and you're stronger. And you always want to honor that person in your life. So thank you for sharing that. I won't go on too much longer. I won't go on and on, but Tanmay, we're all thinking of you, and we definitely send you our condolences as this tribe. So thanks so much for sharing. One of the things last thing I'll tell you is that there's going to be some time, especially like for funerals and things like that, where, and I don't know if you have children of your own. I don't know if you have, whatever, but maybe you go to work. Maybe you go to work tomorrow or whatever, and man, you're still broken up. Here is a little breathing technique. Okay. So I'm going to give you a technique to help you get through this moment so that you can get your job done. I don't want you using it except for whenever you just have to focus. Okay. So I want you to let your limbic system do what your limbic system needs to do. Grieve, cry, don't drink. But then there's going to be times whenever you got to go to work, right? And God, I feel, man, my heart right now. I'm thinking about the times whenever I suffered great loss, especially one big one, and still had to go to work. I had to still be myself, and so people were expecting me to smile, and I'm not saying you need to go do fake smiling, but my profession is I'm there for other people. I'm helping other people with learning things and with right. So if I show up and I'm all like in tears all the time, I'm not doing my job. So here is a technique that you can do. Okay, you feel like, man, I'm going to cry. You go to the bathroom, go to some place where you maybe you're in your car or something like that. You feel that those emotions kind of creeping up, and you do what we call the physiological sigh. It's also known as the sniff, sniff, poo. And if that makes you laugh, it's good, because I want to make you laugh right now, because laughing is good medicine. But the sniff, sniff, poo, or the physiological sigh, it goes a little something like this. You're going to take a nice big breath and a deep breath, and it'll look something like this. Okay, so it'll be in through the nose, out through the mouth. It'll be and what you're going to be doing, and we explain it more in the 6-week breath mastery class, is what you're going to be doing is you're going to offload some CO2, and you're going to reduce the amount of anxiety that you sense in that moment, which should allow you to get through that moment and go be the best you can be for your family, for your kids, for work. And then whenever you have time to grieve again, grieve, knowing that it is a healthy human process that will eventually produce good results. There's a reason why we grieve. There's a reason why every culture on the planet has always had grieving rituals even. It's because we need to. And eventually, like I said, the pain never goes away, but eventually you become strong enough to hold that and take it with you and honor your father, honor those memories. All right. That's for you, my friend. Thank you so much, Tanmay, for that question. Let's go to the next one. Let's see what we have here. So Joshua Haynes, let's see. Oh, wait a minute. I skipped down, didn't I? And Carla, yes, thank you for sending love to Tanmay. Let's see. How do you deal with a dry throat? John, you may have to give me a little bit more context there. I'm not sure 100% what you mean. It sucks. Take a drink of water. Be kind to yourself. Is there a specific context that during breathing practice? Okay, so again, take a drink of water. If you have a dry throat and so, like, for instance, if you're doing some kind of an in-depth or longer version, maybe it's a long protocol. How do you deal with a dry throat? Make sure you're well hydrated throughout the day. It's likely you're becoming dehydrated. And then also make sure you're breathing in through the nose. Tanmay has a great comment there, a humidifier. So make sure the air that you're breathing is humid enough. That's something that, as of right now, I live in Indiana. Our humidity is out, just through the roof right now. So I kind of forget about that sometimes. But yeah, humidity is important. And breathe in through your nose. And the nice thing is, when you breathe in through your nose, and as long as you're well hydrated and you're breathing through your nose, you're going to humidify the air that you breathe in anyway. And you're going to keep your lungs and your bronchi and your trachea and all this stuff, all the breathing mechanism, you're going to keep it well hydrated, and you're going to reduce any irritation or eliminate irritants altogether because of those beautiful things in your nose that help filter out the air. So yeah, so Carly's in Louisiana. My God, yeah. So look out. Let's see. Carly says, "This is beautiful, Jesse. My son went to heaven a few months ago, and it's been devastating. What you're saying is wonderful. We did Wim Hof together, and it took me a while to get back. Well, stay strong, Carly. It's this is all part of that human experience, and this is something that sometimes that I think about. Every human that's ever lived has dealt with loss, and has had to deal with. If you live long enough, you experience pain, and the thing is, life is full of pain, but it's also full of joy too. And so we take the good with the bad, and we don't even make that judgment. We just try to move forward. But be strong, and I'm here with you. And just I feel you, man. I'm starting to get a little weepy myself. But hang in there, my friend. And thank you so much for your comment. Alex says grounding and deep breathing in 90 degrees effects. Well, first of all, Alex, I'd like to thank you for using Fahrenheit, because this group and Papa Geek, if you're listening, doesn't always, not everybody likes to use Fahrenheit, but thank you for that. Let's see, grounding and deep breathing, 90-degree effects. Awesomeness. Basically, I would just say awesomeness. That is a recipe for goodness, my friend. And you know, it doesn't matter about the temperature. I mean, it does. You know, are you in the sunshine? Are you in the shade? You know, if you're doing any kind of deep breathing exercises in 90-degree weather and grounding, I mean, you're going to probably, you know, if you lived in my neighborhood, you're going to see me do exactly that. So, so I'm not going to say anything negative about doing that. I think that's a great idea. So, yeah, stick with it. Papa Geek. I'm the Celsius gang. Yeah, well, I'm glad that I didn't. 90 degrees Celsius would be like insane. That's almost like boiling water. 90-degree Fahrenheit is just really hot. And if you're in where I live in Indiana, it's incredibly humid. And right now we're just starting to get it. We had a kind of an early summer weather, and then it got cold for just a few weeks, and then now it's getting hot again. So, and Peter, you're a Celsius person too, huh? You know, here's the thing. I haven't worked with my European friends in long enough that I haven't had to do the Celsius conversion. I need to start, and really, I haven't done a video on cold training lately, so I haven't had to think in Celsius. And I would hate to have to start thinking in meters. But the funny thing is, I think in grams. You know, when it comes to like here in the United States, our food has grams in milligrams and grams. Like if you take like a supplement, like this would be an international unit, like an IU, or you know, you're. So I don't understand. I don't know why. I guess maybe we're like, hey, let's just make it nice and confusing for everybody. let's do grams for how we measure micronutrients and macronutrients, and then let's do the imperial system for like everything else. So let's see here. Joshua Haynes. Let's see. Thoughts on using essential oils to help with breathing. I have found cypress is good once to help open airways. I've done it with Wim Hof in hot tub. It's a different experience. Well, I love essential oils. They're just beautiful smells. And what I always love it whenever like I'm leading a breathwork workshop, and then there's people that brought the essential oils and they're passing it with their friends and offering it to other people in the group. I always like that for two reasons. One, that I get to smell, you know, really nice smells, but also it shows me, wow, these people are really, really taking it seriously. It's really kind of cool how that works. So yeah, I'm all about it. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think it will have any like significant measurable difference on like your biological or physiological results, but I won't say it won't. And I won't, but I will also say, I will add this to my comment on that. I do think that if you do the essential oils, it does enhance the experience. And anytime you enhance an experience, you're going to enhance a lot of other things. Now there's all these Celsius comments. I should have just shut up. Papa Geek, did you call the rest of the world and say, okay, we oh my God. So all these Celsius people. Well, I'm sorry. I grew up with Fahrenheit. I don't, you know, it's funny when it's just the way you start thinking. It's just like you think in Fahrenheit, like, yeah, it's 70 degrees outside or whatever. And then people are like, it's what? Oh, okay. In Fahrenheit, that is like, I think, let's see, what's 70? Is that, let's see, I think it's like 18 degrees Celsius. I don't know. I don't know. I think that is, I think that's right. So the trick that I learned is what is it? You half it and then minus by 32. I don't remember off. It's Friday. I, I'm gonna, I'm gonna leave that to the experts. Leave it to the fact checkers. So, oh my God. Yeah. Awkward to Awesome. Giving me, by the way, guys, if you haven't seen Awkward to Awesome's YouTube channel, you need to check it out. I've really been impressed with the videos you've been making lately, my friend. So, and so, yeah, definitely check out his YouTube channel, sub to his YouTube channel. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. 10 May, Kelvin gang. Okay, at least nobody, you're the only one in the Kelvin gang. I'm just okay, so I still have the Fahrenheit people here. Okay, here we go. All right, so hey guys, so I just want to invite you guys again, just kind of to recap and just to remind everybody, I am setting up the last beta group of the 6-week online breathwork course. So what that means is like the price is going to go up after this one. And the thing is, we decided we're going to do 3 beta rollouts. So what we're doing is we're finding all these glitches, we're finding all these problems and things as we go. And then we're not charging as much because, hey, you might have a day when you can't, for some reason, the app doesn't work or something like that. And I don't think that's really going to happen. Honestly, I think we found all the glitches, but I'm going to be, but we're rolling out. This is our last one as far as beta. So anyway, after that, it will cost more to do the 6-week breath mastery class, the live version. And the live version is for 6 weeks, every Wednesday. In this case, it'll be every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We get together and it's literally it's a lot like this, only I teach a curriculum. And I will have homework for you. And it's not hard homework, it's breathwork homework. So it's awesome. But by the end of it, you'll be able to test your own physiology. You'll understand the proper ways to engage the proper muscles at the right time to get the best ventilation perfusion in your lungs. You're gonna know all these different things that you never thought you would have to know. Some of it will be review from a lot of you guys. You've read this book or that book. Awesome. But everybody that's taken the course so far that's reached out to me is like, wow, this is really, and I didn't know that I didn't know this stuff. And that's the thing. You don't know what you don't know. Moose Man's asked, will I ever offer a non-live version of the class? Yes. In fact, I am working on filming and putting that together, and it will be a standalone class. It will be available. My hope is that it's going to be available by this fall, possibly before then. And so that is what I'm working on. However, right now, the live class, the nice thing about the live class is that if you can't make it to the class, you still get all the recordings. You still get every aspect of the live class except for the live aspect, because we record it and then you can just watch it on replay. And then every other aspect of it, it's on an app that you can download on your phone. And then you can have, like, I let you have the guided breathwork sessions for homework. And then ultimately, eventually, it's not guided anymore. Eventually, you'll be determining your own protocols and you'll understand how your physiology works with different techniques. You're going to understand more about yourself when you're done than you do now, which I love being able to say that. So it really is some of the best work that I've ever done. And I'm really proud of the 6-week breath mastery course. And again, if you're in the Patreon club, you get a huge discount. If you're not in the Patreon club, hey, join the Patreon club. But either way, it's only $399 right now. So it's only basically $400. I'm a Midwesterner. We round up. Okay. We're very conservative with our money people. Basically though, it's going to go up after that. So I highly recommend getting into it now. And the cool thing is it's cohort style. So it's not like just any random person can come in. Once it starts, you're in a group and you can get to know these people. And a lot of people have great conversations. There's a lobby that everybody gets to talk in and just kind of hang out. We have breaks, we have breakout rooms. It's nothing uncomfortable. You're not ever going to be put into a breakout room by me and say, okay, talk to this person. I'm never going to do that to you. So if you just want to hang out and, hey, I'm doing my own thing, then you can do that too. Tan May says, how big will the group be? This one is going to probably be the smallest group so far. Usually we've had some as big as 50. We've had some a little bit smaller than that. This one's pretty small. So you'll get to know the people pretty well as you want to. Nobody's forcing you to get to know these people, but it is kind of a cool thing. And so if you're looking to really learn about yourself and learn how breathwork works, not just how breathwork works, it's all about understanding your own personal physiology, then applying the technique. And when you know how to do those two things together, then you unlock breathwork. And what I see, and this is why I'm creating these courses, so much of the world that's in the breathwork world. And hey, if you're practicing breathwork, I love you. It's a good thing, right? But so many people are stuck in first gear, and so few people ever break out of first gear. And what this is to break you into being able to use your breath at will, any time of day, and to understand how it works, and to sleep better, digest better, breathe better. And of course, for those of you who are looking for the breath holds, I'll teach you how to do the really, really long breath holds and all those other things, all the secrets to creating your own personalized breathing practice. And it's not this huge data dump. What I always hate is whenever people just dump a bunch of studies on me. It's all applicable, and we do experiments on ourselves in class real time. So that is coming up. June 16th is when we start. So you need to sign up before June 16th. And if you go to my website, it is available. Let's see here. If you go to jessekummer.com, just put that in there. If you go there, you just look for courses, and it's in there. Just scroll down and you can sign up. If you have bought my book, so if you already have my book, A Practical Guide to Breathwork, you can use there's a code in the back of the book. Just use the first 8 characters in that code, and you can get $25 off your ticket entry to the cohort. And if it doesn't work, if for some reason you have trouble with it, just email me and I'll send you the copy and paste version of that. So yeah, if you want to break out in first gear, definitely join us, and you get to hang out with us. You'll get to hang out with me for 2 hours a week, every week for 6 weeks. And most of the people, it's kind of cool. At the end of usually by week 4 or 5, I'll see in the comments, people like, oh man, it's starting to get over. I don't want it to end, and it really is something where we have a lot of fun. It's a really fun time. So it's not just lecture. We do a lot of fun stuff too. So I hope to see you there. We are doing a free webinar that is going to be next week, and I'm going to put the links to that on the community page, and you'll be able to access that. Sign up for it if you like. Send it to your friends. Let other people who maybe you're like, hey, you need breath work. You need to calm down, or you need to learn to breathe, right? And it's like, hey, Jesse, you take this. I'll take it. Be nice to yourself, and you don't have to do all the work. I'll do the work. Is it bad to smoke a pack a day and do breath work? It's bad to smoke a pack a day. It's bad for your health. It's not morally wrong, Ricky. But if anybody needs to do breath work, it's a person who smokes. If nothing else, that'll help your lungs not be hurt as bad. So that's totally fine. And so, but I mean, obviously, it's not good for you to smoke. But let's see here. Any last minute questions? I think we're all good, guys. Thanks so much. And hey, Josh, call your buddy up and say, hey, could you read that code? Can you read that code in the back of the book to me? And, you don't have to be in physical possession of the book in order to use the code. But hey, I'm glad you're spreading the love. Thank you for spreading that out there, Josh. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Guys, have a great weekend. And please like, subscribe if you haven't already done so. And again, help the channel out. Watch the videos, share the videos. We do appreciate it here. Last minute question. What watch are you wearing? I am wearing the Garmin watch. I don't remember exactly what the model is. I use it all the time with Breathwork. And with my sleeping. So guys, thanks so much. Hopefully I'll see you in the 6-week course. If not, no big deal. I'll see you next week here at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time. Guys, have a great week. Don't forget to be kind to people. Bye-bye.